Good evening and thanks for joining us. One man is dead following a single vehicle collision last night. Thunder Bay OPP are currently investigating the collision that happened in Devon Township. Police were called to the scene around 10:30 by a passing motorist who saw a male lying in a ditch beside a motorcycle. Police, fire, ambulance, and Nebing first responders located the male deceased in a ditch beside a motorcycle. It appears the 50-year-old Thunder Bay male driver lost control of his vehicle and skidded into the ditch. He was pronounced dead at the scene. His name is being held pending next of kin notification. Well, one of the larger condo developments going up in Thunder Bay is about to get bigger. The club residence, currently under construction at the Thunder Bay Country Club, could grow by 29 units if council approves the plan Monday night. The original plan saw 80 units in the 6-story mixed-use building. The developer is now asking for an increase to 109 units. The building design has been modified, but the height of the structure will remain the same. The building will also contain a golf course pro shop, the clubhouse, restaurant, and banquet facility. The planning division is supportive of this increase in units. Council will also get an update on the local food strategy. The city recently hired a full-time coordinator for the strategy through Eco Superior. Thunder Bay Police Service is changing how you can access 911 services. Chief of Police J.P. Levesque says by the end of 2014, the equipment will be in place to answer text message 911 calls. The advancement would help people with hearing impairments to have the ability to make an emergency call through their phone. The piece of equipment that needs to be in place will also give police the ability to locate someone by their cell phone. Currently, the police don't have the capability to locate someone by cellular device, and it's a problem they've run into quite often. However, the change doesn't run cheap.
That means of communication. Certainly having the video is going to enhance our ability to enforce and detect crime. What goes with that, though, is not only do you have to capture it, you have to store it for court purposes. So there's the whole storage component. That's when it really starts getting expensive, when you're talking terabytes of storage capability.
The first changes are expected to be in place by the end of next year. It looks like a decades-old battle over a historic canoe may not be finished just yet. The town of Atikokan, which dubs itself the canoe capital of Canada, has been trying to get their hands on the Ontario Centennial Canoe. Just who exactly owns the canoe, also known as the McGillivray, has been a little unclear. It was originally gifted to the city of Fort William shortly after the 1967 race. The Nebing Voyageurs explained the importance of the vessel to their organization to Thunder Bay City Council back in June, and after hearing their presentation, Mayor Keith Hobbs says it was time to put the issue to rest. Atikokan Mayor Dennis Brown says not so fast. He's written Hobbs to ask him to arrange a meeting between Atikokan officials and the Nebing Brigade. Brown feels the canoe should be preserved and not used on water.
This was quite an event back in 1967, and rather than forget about it and let everything be taken away, we should try and preserve our history. We all have a responsibility to do that, and that's why we're still hopeful that Mayor Hobbs can convene that meeting.
Brown and others in his community, including one of the original participants of the Centennial Race, want the canoe on display in the Atikokan Museum. The 4th annual Miles with the Giant Marathon took place at Marina Park today, and although some early morning frost covered the grounds, that didn't stop hundreds of people from taking part. Each year, President and Chair of the Miles with the Giant Marathon, Barry Stribes, says the goal of the race is not only to show what the city has to offer, but to give runners the chance to compete at beating their best scores. Half a dozen elite runners came to the event from Kenya and the United States and across the country. Stribes says the runners were pleased with the course last year, and this year they decided to keep it the same. He says each year the marathon has a huge impact on the city.
To come into our community to see what we have to offer for the world, and it's a showcase, but it creates some economic development, some tourism, and our restaurants and retail services are impacted by that. So when we have a lot of runners coming in, we're looking at about $800,000 worth of dollars coming into our community, which is significant for a weekend.
We'll have details on the marathon results coming up a little later in sports. Well, a company looking to eliminate the digital divide in the northern communities says the region is technologically behind the times. WildCom says they want to provide a game-changing wireless solution to northwestern Ontario. And as Dennis Ward reports, the company is looking to provide a new stream of revenue for municipalities involved.
Northwestern Ontario is an area that is currently behind the times as far as technology goes.
Adrian Latiker represents WildCom, a new startup looking to better serve the region's wireless needs. The company had its first test run in Emo during the Rainy River Fair. Latiker says Fort Frances is now on board with their service, and there's a reason for politicians to sign on. 5% of all revenue generated in a municipality will go back to the municipality. The pitch was very interesting to Mayor and Council in Greenstone.
There are opportunities for revenue there also for our community. And also what's most important for me as the mayor is that we're looking at bettering the service that we have in the area, and anything that we can do to try to provide a better service to the community is definitely a plus.
WildCom are in talks with other municipalities in the region, and Latiker says he was pleased with what he heard in Greenstone.
I think the municipalities are realizing that the technology is there, and unlike the past where Northwestern Ontario has been the forgotten sibling of Ontario, we're capable of accessing the same or better technology that they're seeing currently in the larger centers like Toronto and Ottawa.
Cellular service and internet are hit and miss in some parts of the massive municipality of Greenstone, and while WildCom's proposal is something that will be further investigated, a $4 million broadband project is already in the works.
You can imagine that this fiber is welcomed. It's also welcome to some of our remote community, well, not remote communities, they're very close to the center, Geraldton Ward, kilometers away that cannot have high speed. So this fiber build is something that we're hoping that will provide all of the constituents in the region with service.
Ground is expected to be broken on the broadband connection later this year or early next spring. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
It's been a long time coming for the Native community of Gull Bay, and after over 80 years, band members are preparing to cast their votes over a settlement offer from Ontario Power Generation. Ontario Hydro built dams that damaged reserve land many years ago. And just last month, more than 180 band members voted to proceed to a ratification vote, but it could be some time until that happens. Gull Bay currently has a registered population of more than 1,000 members, with about 320 people living on the reserve on Lake Nipigon. The previous offer of a $10 million settlement was turned down by Chief Wilfred King. And according to King, this new offer is substantially higher, which will help bring the long-standing dispute to a close. There's no word yet on when the ratification vote will be taking place, but Council is preparing.
Preparing all the necessary documentation for the ratification vote. And we anticipate that this documentation will be ready within the next couple of weeks, and we're making sure that we follow the Indian Act referendum regulations, and that there's a process within that as well. So,
King says he feels confident that the motion will pass. The leader of the Ontario Liberal Party recently visited the city to hear from residents how to better serve our region. Shortly after, the leaders of both the Ontario Conservatives and the NDP also came to our city on provincial tours. For our question of the day, we wanted to know who you thought would win an election following the recent visits.
Well, I think we'd still be at that minority point right now. I don't think Hudak has much support to actually overtake the Liberals at the present time. So it really depends on what the NDP want to do. And so I think we're going to be in another minority government either way for the next couple of years.
I don't see a clear-cut winner. The Conservatives seem a little bit dicey with Hudak. I think maybe Wynne might get in again, but it'll be a minority with the NDP.
No, I couldn't say one way or another.
Win or something, is it? Yeah, I think she would. Because it's better out of the three choices, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I would hope it would be the NDP, led by Andrea Horwath.
Why is that?
I think she just, she knows what she's doing, and the people around here there's a lot of working class people, and the NDP are the best for the working